and this is industry leading 10 million context length optimized for inference. This is insane. And they equally have a shared expert. So in here we have a mixture of experts. If something actually outperforms Claude Sonnet 3.7 is actually scary. What's up, the internet? Hello everybody. Meta just dropped LLaMA 4 and it is insane. The benchmarks, everything, it is incredible. Now, this just dropped a couple of hours ago. It was just released by Meta and it is incredible. The benchmarks, everything, it is insane. Now, bear with me guys, this video is no way gonna be long, it's not gonna be lengthy. I'm gonna make another video where I fully test this model, and why not maybe make it in a video where we essentially install it on a custom server or install it locally on our hardware. So if you want to see that video, do well to smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you will get notified when we essentially post the video. Now, they mentioned here the LLaMA 4 herd. So they begin here by saying the beginning of a new era of natively multimodal AI innovation. This is incredible. So essentially, these are the newest model suits offering unrivaled speed and efficiency. So if you scroll down here, we're going to see that in this herd, there are essentially 3 models. So we have the LLaMA 4 Behemoth, I hope I'm pronouncing this well, and LLaMA 4 Maverick with the LLaMA 4 Scoot. Now, each of these models have the peculiarity, and one of the interesting things I do love about these models is they are natively multimodal. Now, the LLaMA 4 Behemoth, which is 288 billion active parameters, which is a 16 experts with 2 trillion total parameters. That is incredible. So to mention here, this is the most intelligent teacher model for distillation. Now, the LLaMA 4 Maverick is a 13 billion active parameters model with 128 experts with a 400 billion total parameters. That is native multimodal with 1 million context length. And the last one, which is the LLaMA 4 Scoot, which is 17 billion active parameters, 16 experts, 109 billion total parameters, and this is industry leading 10 million context length optimized for inference. This is insane. This is really an interesting time to be alive. Now, we all know that Meta has always been striving for open source and open research. This is an incredible thing because I do think that these open source models are essentially helping in keeping a balance between the closed source models like OpenAI models or some of the Mistral models and the sort of open source model, that's the open research. And I really do respect Meta for this move because this is definitely making life a lot better for us open source enthusiasts out there. Now, they go further to mention here that LLaMA 4 Scoot, a 17 billion active parameters model with 16 experts, is the best multimodal model in the world in its class, and it's more powerful than all previous generations of LLaMA. So if you've been watching some of our videos, the previous generations of LLaMA models like the LLaMA 3, LLaMA 3.1 and 3.2 models, both the 7B and 70B with the 405 billion parameters model. So this essentially is way better than those previous generation of LLaMA models, while fitting in a single NVIDIA H100 GPU. This is incredible. Now, the mention here, additionally, LLaMA 4 Scoot offers an industry-leading context window of 10 million and delivers better results than Gamma 3, Gemini 2.0, Flashlight, and Mixture 3.1 across a broad range of widely reported benchmarks. It is incredible. Now, the LLaMA Maverick model is essentially compared to the DeepSeek 3. They mention here LLaMA 4 Maverick a 17 billion active parameters model with 128 experts is the best multimodal model in its class, beating Chat GPT 4.0. That's the GPT 4.0 from OpenAI, which of course, if you know GPT 4.0 with the recently released image generation in GPT 4.0, if you haven't watched that video, we made a video regarding that. If you haven't watched it, the video is going to be added in a card in this video. Have a look at it. It is incredible. So they mentioned that this model, this LLaMA 4 Maverick, is essentially beating GPT 4.0 and Gemini 2.0 Flash across a broad range of widely reported benchmarks, while achieving comparable results to the new DeepSeek V3 on reasoning and coding at less than half the active parameters. This is insane. So they were able to essentially achieve this with less, which is basically less than half the active parameters. So now here we're talking about the active parameters. So the active parameters, which in this particular model, the Maverick model, is essentially 17 billion active parameters, which is in a total of 400 billion total parameters. Now, this means that the 17 billion parameters are essentially the ones that are essentially active. Now, this is incredible because the LLaMA 4 Maverick offers a best-in-class performance to cost ratio with an experimental chat version scoring a low of 1,417 on LM Arena. This is incredible. Now, they further went to mention here that these models are our best yet thanks to distillation from LLaMA 4 Behemoth, which essentially is they have this larger model, which is, if you see here above here, this is the 2 trillion total parameters with the 288 billion parameters active with 16 experts. This is sort of like the teacher. That's kind of the definition of distillation. So you have a sort of bigger model, and then you have that model train children model or much more smaller models in order to make those models better, essentially transferring knowledge from the bigger models to the smaller models. So they say here, LLaMA 4 Behemoth outperforms GPT 4.5, Claude Sonnet 3.7. This is insane. If something actually outperforms Claude Sonnet 3.7 is actually scary. And Gemini 2.0 Pro on several STEM benchmarks. This is unprecedented. They are mentioning here that the LLaMA 4 Behemoth is still training, and they are excited to share more details about it even while it is still in flight. This is incredible. Like I mentioned earlier, these models are completely open source, so you can have access to the models on Hugging Face and essentially even request to the models to have access to the models on the llama.com website. So just send a request to access the LLaMA models, and you have access to them. Or you can just use Hugging Face and essentially get access to the model weights and everything in between. This is just incredible. Now, if you don't have the computing units or everything in between to run these models completely on your custom hardware, if you don't have the H100 NVIDIA GPUs or something like that, you can just access these models through WhatsApp, Messenger, Instagram Direct, or basically the web. So by accessing this link right here. Now, they further explain their pre-trained process, and they essentially mentioned that their LLaMA models are their first models that used mixture of experts. That's the MOE. Essentially, for those of you that don't know what the mixture of expert architecture is, it's pretty much a sort of architecture where you have many smaller models that essentially are specific experts at certain tasks. Let's say you have a small model in there that is essentially good at, let's say, recognizing images, or you have another model that is essentially better at writing poetry or at writing novels, or essentially at solving math problems and stuff like that. So they go further explaining here that in mixture of expert models, a single token activates only a fraction of the total parameters, And the MOE architectures are more compute efficient for training and inference, and given a fixed training flops budget, delivers higher quality compared to a dense model. And essentially, we can see their architecture here. We can see all of the attentions. We can see the routes here, the specific experts. Let's say here we have let's say, like I mentioned earlier, an expert that is good at essentially recognizing images, or OCR, and another expert that's maybe good at math, another one that's perfect at writing poetry and stuff like that. And they equally have a shared expert. So in here, we have a mixture of experts. And underneath here, they share the post-training of their new models. And essentially, they're pretty much saying that with this, their new LLaMA 4 models, they essentially revamped their post-training pipeline by adopting a different approach. And they're essentially using the lightweight supervised fine-tuning, that's SFT, online reinforcement learning, and lightweight direct performance optimization. I wrote a blog post about DOP. If you want to have a look at it, you can check the blog post down in the description of this video. Without wasting more time, they're essentially mentioning here their post-training, the way, like the ins and outs of how they did their post-training. I'm gonna add the link, like always, to this blog post down in the description below, so you can have a look at it and read it for yourself. Now, before we move to the benchmarks, if you are watching this video up to this moment, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate you for hanging around. If you like this video, please smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you would not miss videos like this one. In this channel, we essentially make videos where we talk about AI, machine learning, we train models, work on personal projects, and everything in between. And again, before we move down to the metrics, I wanted to talk about the sponsor of today's video. Today's sponsor is, yes, you heard it, Bro. Essentially, if you're looking for someone that can help you with your machine learning task, AI, ML deploying, training, everything in between, feel free to reach out to us by booking a call with us down in the description of this video, and we would be ready to work with you. Now, back to the video. So we're currently looking at the LLaMA 4 Maverick instruct tuned benchmarks, and we have our categories here, and the model, which is our model, and the Gemini 2.0 Flash DeepSeek V3.1 and GPT-4o. In terms of cost, we can see here that GPT-4o is definitely way higher, and that is the cost per million token 3.1 blended. Now this is the cost per million tokens input and output tokens. Essentially, we have the MMMU, which is the essentially image reasoning math vista, and we can see here that the LLaMA 4 Maverick is essentially beating the 2.0 Flash Gemini at most of the benchmarks. Live coding, it is insane. Now notice here how the DeepSeek V3.1 is not yet multimodal. If LLaMA 4 Maverick can beat GPT-4o, then this is definitely a good improvement, definitely hitting somewhere. Chat Q&A test, so it definitely beats. I mean, the gap is not too wide, but it definitely, we can see that it definitely beats most of these models at most of the benchmarks. This is an incredible model we have right here. Now, before we wrap up here, I wanted us to talk a little bit about the needle in a haystack. Essentially, this is a way of essentially evaluating these models by, essentially placing something, or the essential background behind the needle in the haystack is, you have something that is kind of hard to find. All right, so think of it like you're asked to find a screwdriver in maybe someone's workshop or something like that, or someone's garage, and there are essentially a lot of things to find, and you need to find that specific needle or that specific screwdriver. And this is just the basic explanation of what this is all about. So we can see here that the LLaMA 4 Maverick failed twice, right? But most of the time it actually passed. This is the depth per percentage. And we can see that the LLaMA 4 Scoot actually did not fail. It had successful retrievals all through. This is insane. This is incredible. And we can see here the false code has two failures. This is essentially really incredible. Video length. This is here with the video length, which is essentially video here is kind of videos of like 20 hours, and it was able to find something specific in that particular video. Think of a YouTube video, for example, where there's a specific thing that a YouTuber says in the video, and you essentially pass this video to the model, and the model has to find that specific thing. In that, it essentially failed only twice. Yeah, that is insane. That is insane. That is incredible. Now, here we have the cumulative average NLL for the code, and we can see here that the cumulative log likelihood is decreasing as a sequence position and everything in between. The other benchmarks, we can clearly see that these benchmarks here, we can see the LLaMA 4 Scoot essentially beating most of these models at most of the benchmarks, and this is just so incredible. Same goes for the Behemoth Instruct model, which is an absolute beast. Yeah, they are working on safeguards. Of course, they have the LLaMA guard, which they're working on, and essentially that's pretty much about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you loved watching this video, please give it a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet, so you won't miss videos like this one. I know I said this video is not going to be long. I do hope this video is not too long. Thanks again for watching, and see you guys in the next one.